You've been around a while, you love your KTM, you know everything there is to know about it, right? So let me ask you, because I know you noticed it already, what the hell is that? If you guess it's a ride height tool, you're only partly right. This tool measures your whole chassis. This tool tells you your trail, something that I have to drive 4 hours and spend $150 to get professionally measured, and then I get my trail. You can have in your garage with your own tape measure. This is the key to unlocking potential you never knew your Superduke had. I'm Gogo for Superduke.com. Let's get into these things. If you follow my channel, you're picking up on a pattern, right? I talked about chassis attitude recently, spring rates, now I'm talking about a chassis measuring tool. What in the world is going on? All of these subjects are related. They're all coming together with one common goal: to help you get more out of your motorcycle and your motorcycling. I know people think because I race, I learned these things from racing, well, it doesn't really apply because you ride in the street. That is not true at all. We deal with exactly the same physics, you and me. Maybe I do it at higher speeds, but maybe that also just makes it easier for me to learn because things are exaggerated. But trust me, the physics that I'm dealing with are the same physics that you're dealing with. So let me sift through these extreme conditions and learn the benefits and learn the drawbacks, right? And I'll just gather the benefits and offer them to you. You don't have to deal with the crap. Let me deal with the crap. But you gotta be a little bit patient. We have the attention span of like 9-year-olds. 30 seconds and we're done to the next thing. Sit with me for a minute. I promise you, I will not waste your time. Okay, what is a chassis measuring tool and how can it benefit you and your bike and your garage? Great question. Okay, so recently I talked about chassis attitude, right? When a bike is more on its nose, it's easier to turn. It's easier to flick side to side. When a bike is back down in the back and up in the front, and it's lazy. It's lazier to turn. It's frustrating. Okay, there you go. So that's like an established understanding of what chassis attitude is like very generally. Okay, so well, now what? How are you supposed to know what your chassis attitude is? And even if I have this miracle tool, right, that tells you what your chassis attitude is, like how does that relate to your riding? Well, here's a really interesting point. When I'm racing, I'm full throttle, right, and full brake. Everything is so aggressive. So when I get into brake, when I'm preparing for a turn, the nose of my bike goes way down and my trail goes way down. And I tip in, I talk about blending, getting off the brake while you lean in so you can keep that short trail, and it's all wonderful, right? But what about if you're riding through the mountain roads on a street bike? What about if you're just sitting on your springs and you have the chassis attitude that you do when the bike is just going 60 miles an hour in a straight line and you're not braking? Your trail, your rake, all these numbers are whatever they are when you're sitting on the bike. You're not manipulating the attitude of your chassis. You don't get the benefit of my short trail when I'm braking so hard. You just have to steer the bike while you're keeping up with your buddies with the trail, with the numbers that it has. So you see what I'm getting at here? If your spring rates aren't right, for instance, for let's say you're a heavier guy and you're sitting in the seat and a lot of your weight is kind of on the back of the bike, and Superdukes actually carry more weight in the rear than they do in the front. Then you sit, look where you sit, way back here. That's not the center of the bike. So you might be really down like this. And Lord also knows that the spring that comes stock on a Superduke is very weak. It's only an 85. So you get a guy who's 200 pounds and he's really squatting a lot. So he doesn't get the benefit of this bike. But how does he really know? How do you really know what your actual active trail is? Now you know. You take this tool, you put it in here and you sit on your bike and you get your buddy to hold the bike and measure while you're sitting on the bike. And you measure, you input your numbers into the tool that's on superduke.com. There's going to be, it's not here yet. I'm not sure whether I'm going to put it on the back or the front, but I'm going to put one of those QR code things. So you just take your phone and follow the QR code. It'll bring you right to superduke.com, where there's going to be, there already is, it's already there. There's a chart with labels for each input that you have to put. You'll measure how much your forks are above the triple clamp. You'll measure what's the chrome area of your shock, how much is that showing. You'll measure what the ride height is off of this tool. You input all these values, your gearing, the chain lengths, input all these values, and out is going to come your trail. And trail, remember, is the single most impactful element to your setup that gives you like this feeling. And it's not just a feeling, right? You feel like the bike is easier to steer because it is easier to steer. You feel like you go through the corner and like, wow, I can carry more speed than before. Well, you feel that because physically at 60 miles an hour with a lot of trail, it takes a quarter of a mile to turn around, right? At 60 miles an hour with less trail, it takes an eighth of a mile to go around. It's just physically, the bike turns in a shorter radius, right? So that's what you feel. Like people talk about, oh, the feel is really cool. Well, you know, yeah, the feel is great, but the feel isn't really what we're after here. We're after creating a difference. And that difference is the bike turns easier and in a smaller radius. So then, you know, when you can go 60 and it took a quarter of a mile to go around this turn, well, and then you change your trails a little shorter, right? So now you can go 70 and go in that same quarter mile radius. That's what happened to me on the racetrack. And that was like the big hurdle to get over when I first started racing the Gen 3, because my Gen 2, I could rip around these sweeping turns. I remember exactly the speeds I could do and the RPMs. Everything was like, I was dialed. Got on this bike and it went to hell. I was probably 6 miles an hour slower through the same turns. And it was only months had gone by between the last race on the Gen 2 and the first race on the Gen 3. Like, what happened to me? I thought I lost all my skills. I was frustrated. I went home like mad and unsatisfied and just really unhappy. And then, you know, we end up getting where we are now. And now I understand the chassis and setups. I know where the weak parts are of this bike, the weak points, and I know how to improve them. And now you do too, because I'm sharing these things. So, chassis attitude, right? So what is it that's so cool about this, right? So when we change the attitude of the chassis, we're changing trail. Like when it goes more on the nose, we reduce the trail, more on the tail, we increase the trail, right? So, but is that the only way that there is to change the trail? Like this great thing, this trail, raking trail? It's not, okay? You have your bike sitting here, right? And you're sitting on the bike, and this is where you're sitting on your springs, right? So if you had like a stiffer rear spring, when you sit on the bike, remember, when the suspension is fully extended, you could have any spring you want in it, and the trail and rake and all these swing arm angles and everything, it's all gonna measure the same, no matter what spring you have. That's why I think it's so important, and that's why I've done this work and got Gavin and Angela to do this mathematical stuff so that we create these tools so that you can know what your trail is when you're sitting on the bike, your active trail, which is very unique. So you sit on the bike, and if you have a stiffer spring, your bike's gonna have this attitude. When you have a softer rear spring, your bike's gonna have this attitude, right? So knowing what that attitude is really important, because it can help you say, I should go more this way, or I should go more that way. And I can help you figure out what directions that should be, email and whatever else, but you'll know where you are, right? So how can you change your trail? Once, let's say you have your bike set up and, you know, I wish it steered better. I wish I like my Ducati steered better. Now I have this, it feels lazy. Like, why can't I get this? Okay, Okay, so there's things we can do. If you were to put, let's say here's your chassis attitude, a sport link in, right? A plus 10. You see how it raises the rear a little bit, right? So now you change this attitude. That's going to affect your trail. Let's say you put a 15. Oh, now that's going to affect your trail because you're actually positioning the chassis at these different attitudes, okay? You put a super link in, right? And you can get these trail numbers as a result of that. Or, ready? Just put a linked adjustable shock in. Don't buy any link. Make the shock longer. That's the same thing. That makes the bike go like this. KTM knows this. Like those guys are geniuses. They know exactly what they're doing, but they're building a bike for the street. It's not, for like you in particular. It's for everybody a little bit and nobody a lot. So you want to make the bike for you, the way you want the bike to feel. So KTM offers a shock that has height adjustability, right? Length adjustability. So they know. So you're altering the attitude of the chassis. The WP Apex Pro that they sell only gives you a little bit, right? So I make the Super Link and you can use longer shocks and all this stuff so you can get more, right? So you feel the benefit of swing arm angle, you feel the benefit of anti-squat, like more anti-squat, right? You feel mostly you feel the benefit of less trail. So you're raising the rear, you're increasing the angle of your chassis, and you're getting less trail as a result. But what if you don't really have super long legs? What if you don't want the bike so high in the rear? Like, what do you do then? Like, how do you even know? Like, how do you know where you are? Okay, so there's another way to change your trail. You know this, if you follow this channel, I make a super clamp. So the super clamp, the adjustable offset triple clamps, let you change your trail without affecting the chassis at all. The chassis stays, you can measure your bike yourself. You measure, put the tool in, okay, here's where your trail is, right? Don't change the attitude at all. Just change your trail. If you think that you ride a street bike, so it's not appropriate that you follow the things that I do that on the race track or race conditions, this is where you're really missing a great opportunity, because I'm working like this to get my trail to be where I want so I can turn in. You're just riding the bike like this, right? I'm not saying you don't brake, but a lot of times for these sweeping turns, you have to turn with the chassis where it is, with the attitude that it has. And a stock Superduke comes with a lot of trail, so it's lazy as hell. Now, without changing the attitude at all, you can change your trail to be whatever you want. There's all different inserts, right? So that's a wonderful thing. If you take this tool, plug it into the chassis, measure your height, write down your measurements, follow the QR code, bring it in, input it to the site, boom, it's going to tell you your trail. Even there's a box that you can input what offset you're using. So if you have the super clamp, you can actually input that value also, and that will also consider the difference that it makes on your trail. So it's brilliant. You put your sprockets, the chain, all these things, and you get the answers, right? You get to have the chassis that you want, the chassis attitude that you want, or the trail that you want, without even changing the chassis attitude. Now, there's another part to this, right? I also sell a super short. So I sell ways for you to make the rear higher, and I sell ways for you to make the rear lower, right? So if your legs aren't that long, these bikes are super tall, right? I'm just kind of learning this. So that's why I only made this winter, finally came out with it, because a lot of people that I talk to can barely touch the ground with their toes while they ride, or when they stop at a stop sign, or even the worst I've heard, you go up a hill and you're kind of like at a stop sign at a hill, and you have to put your tippy toes down there and then balance the bike, traffic's coming, then you go, oh, who wants to ride a bike like that? So now you can lower the height 20 millimeters with a super short. But what does that do to your chassis, right? What does that do? If you now put the chassis lower in the rear, now you have more trail. So you can lower the front down to some degree to get some of that back by sliding the forks up, but you can't go a mile, right? Because if you go too far, the wheel ends up hitting the motor or hitting the radiator, right? So you can only go, I think, like 10 millimeters more down from where it is stock, which if you went down 20 in the rear and only 10 in the front, you're still farther down in the back. So what do you do now? That's where the super clamp comes in. Now you can change your trail to get back what you lost when you lower the rear, and then some. You can still go even more less and less, and you can still get way less trail than the bike had stock, even though you also lower the rear. So it's brilliance, right? And how do you know what that is? You take this tool, you slide it into this frame, and you measure. Put your inputs, and that's what it is. Doesn't matter what you bolted to the bike, what part you have, this tool will tell you everything that you need. So how do you use this tool? This is interesting because if you follow the channel and you have seen my products, you know that I made a 3D printed ride height tool that I was really kind of happy about because it folds and you can put it in a drawer. This does not fold, right? But there's something that always bothered me about that tool, that it was 3D printed. Some things with 3D printing are great, right? They're excellent. The super stops are 3D printed, and there's not a better way to make those. I had people give me prices on making them out of solid rubber, like silicone or something, but I don't want that bounce. I wanted to absorb the impact. And 3D printing, the way I designed the interior of those stops, amazing. They work amazing. And you can smash it with a hammer, it's so strong, it's great. But for the ride height tool, I never was so overly happy and excited about that because like I used to have to sand them and everything, try to make them look perfect, and they never really looked perfect. So it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Plus, I didn't realize this because I ride a race bike, right? But these bikes come with a foot peg, a passenger foot peg, and the 3D printed ride height tool, when you put it in here, well, let me use this one. So this one is designed it has an insert for this part of the frame, and it has an insert for this part of the frame. So you take it, you slide it into these two holes. There's your ride height tool, okay? And it extends back here, and you measure from the top of this axle up to here, and there's your ride height. That's one of the values that you input into the tool on superduke.com. But the original tool was higher. The arm extended here. And the problem that I didn't realize until I bought my Gen 4 is the foot pegs hit the tool. So I really want this to work for street bike riders. I don't want the ride height tool just to be for racing or track days, because street people will benefit the most from it, right? So this is a problem. In addition to that, right, what do we say about measuring the chassis? The most common way to measure the chassis is when the bike is jacked up in the air and both tires are off the ground. So how do you do that? Well, recently I also came out with the Super Jack, right? This is wonderful. You take the Super Jack and you slide it into the frame. Now, if anyone's thinking ahead here, you might realize that there's a problem, because the ride height tool, the old ride height tool, and what about this ride height tool? I can't use that hole anymore because the Super Jack is in the way. So, because the ride height tool has to connect to the frame. So I have a great solution. These two tools look different, but they're the same tool. I am selling the ride height tool with these two pieces and this piece. So this is really cool. Watch this. This ride height tool just has a hole, and the Super Jack fits right in it, like that. Nice and snug too. So you take it like this. Now you can jack the bike up. Watch, I'll show you. This is amazing. Okay. So we're using the Super Jack and we're using the ride height tool both at the same time. And now, if you want to know your ride height, you can just stretch it down here, and right at the top of the opening for the axle, that's where you measure to. So this one is like 205 millimeters. So you would go, I right now would go online. Like I said, I'm gonna put a QR code here. I'm gonna laser etch it in here. Go with your phone, it'll go right to the page, input 205 millimeters for that. Then, you know, I have this sprocket, I have this chain, measure the height, put all your values in, all the instructions are right there on the page, and boom, there's your trail. Now that's if you do it with the bike suspended. Also, like, if you want to do it proper, you would put like a bottle jack underneath the motor. That's what I usually do. I put the bike on the jack stands, and then I put a bottle jack under the nose of the motor and just burp, 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 jack it a little bit, because right now the front tire is on the ground. Right? That's not really technically the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to extend the forks, tires off the ground. So I just bottle jack the nose, burp, and I've done it a million times. You can have the bike on the Super Jacks and then jack the motor a little bit, and it'll just suspend itself right in the air. And it's pretty sturdy. I mean, I wouldn't go climbing on it, but I've never had a problem at all. One jack stand here, jack stand there, bottle jack there, and just balance it like that. But the really cool thing about this tool, it's just so special, and I'm so excited about it, because most ride height tools are meant to measure the bike when it's floating in the air. This theoretical number, which it's not really worth shit, right? It's not your active trail. It's not your active chassis attitude. So the beautiful thing here is, watch this. If I take this, I'm going to use the tool in its other way. So let's take these off. Now let's say, I mean, we could just use it just like this, right? But let's say you don't have Super Jacks. Let's say you just bought the ride height tool. Then you would use it in this configuration. You see, it's got this fitting on here, this same one as the top, but now it's got this piece on here. So you just put it right in like that, and it's going to measure the same exact way. So what you would do in this case, like say if you wanted to know your active chassis attitude, your active trail, is lower it off the stand, get on it. Get your buddy maybe to hold the bars or something. It definitely takes two people. I don't think you can do it by yourself. Sit on the bike and then measure. Same thing. Obviously the stand wouldn't be here, all right? Measure this, put all your inputs in, measure the chrome of the fork leg, and there you have your active trail. There's no other bike. There's no other third-party company that makes anything like this. It's crazy trigonometry, I think Angela said that she's using to calculate all these angles and everything to come up with solutions no matter what your bike is set up. On the ground, off the ground, you on it, not on it. It's going to tell you what you have. It's fucking brilliant. Okay, so there's our new chassis measuring tool, and I'm so excited about it. I hope you are half as excited as I am, because this really is the key to you getting more out of your Superduke in your garage with your own tape measure. No other bike has this on the market. No other third-party company that I know of even has thought of something like this. So, really exciting. Next video, we're gonna talk about not only spring rates, like the right spring rate for you, but also sag. Not only where to put your sag in a certain place and why to put it there, but why it's also terrible. Motorcycles that come with electronic preload adjustment, which lets you change the chassis attitude with winding preload in, totally sacrifices your sag, which is not a good thing. It's the worst thing you can do for your suspension. So we'll get into that next. For now, I'm Gogo for Superduke.com, and what is better than this?